Hi everyone, ya sabes que Carlos Tirtata to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a delicious no-knead bread recipe that's full of flavor. We're going to flavor it with roasted garlic, feta, and oregano. It's the easiest bread that you'll ever make. You don't need a high-power mixer for this, just a bowl and a spatula in your hands and you're good to go. This is so easy and so delicious. It tastes better than bakery bread in my opinion. Let's get started. Okay, so in a big bowl, combine 3 cups of all-purpose flour with 1.5 teaspoons of salt, 1.5 cups of lukewarm water, a tablespoon of granulated sugar, and half a teaspoon of active dried yeast. Mix it all up with a spatula, and then you can go in with your hands just to make sure that all of the flour is absorbed and there are no more white streaks in it. Cover it with plastic and set this aside for about 12 to 18 hours until it rises, until it's doubled in volume. So to make the roasted garlic, just carefully cut off the top of the garlic to expose the cloves in there and line a little pan. I'm using a little loaf pan here with aluminum foil. Put the garlic in there, drizzle it with lots of olive oil and season it with salt. Cover that foil up and let this bake in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 to 40 minutes covered. Then uncover it and let it bake for another 15-20 minutes or until it's nice and golden and those garlic cloves start to pop out of their little shells. Let it cool completely and then it'll be ready to use in the bread. So as you can see, the bread is nice and fluffy. It's created lots of air bubbles in it. We're just going to squeeze those garlic cloves over the dough, and then I'm also going to crumble up some feta cheese on top. It's about 4 ounces, but you measure feta cheese with your heart. You add as much as you want to it. I'll also add a heaping teaspoon of dried oregano to it, and then I'm going to carefully take the edges of the dough and just fold them into the center to cover all of that filling in there. Then take a piece of parchment paper and dust some all-purpose flour on it and just try to form that dough into a round so that way it bakes nice and beautifully. You can just form it with your hands, roll it, whatever's easy for you. Just make sure that the filling stays in there. In the meantime, before doing all of this, just put the pot in the oven. We're working with a cast iron skillet here. Enamel coated is great, but you want to put it in the oven while it's cold and let the oven preheat up to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. While the skillet is preheating, then you can go on and add all of the fillings into the bread, form it, leave it on the parchment paper and cover it with a clean kitchen towel so that way it can fluff up just a little bit. You don't want this to rise too much. Once your oven is preheated, carefully take the Dutch oven out of the oven and cut some slits on the top of the bread just to make a decorative pattern on it. Carefully put the bread in there with the parchment paper, place the lid on the Dutch oven and put it back into the oven and let it bake covered for 30 minutes. Uncover it very carefully and let it bake for another 15 minutes or until it's deep and golden brown so that way it gets a chance to develop that crusty, crispy crust. Take it out of the oven and let it cool for about 30 minutes before you cut into it. Just take a look at this bread. It's so crunchy and perfectly golden on the outside. It's crispy. It has a beautiful crispy exterior, yet the inside is soft and chewy and airy. It's just so good. And then of course it actually smells like pizza. The kids came down earlier and they asked if I was making pizza. It just has that delicious aroma. Your house is just going to smell so good. Everybody's going to get hungry. You can make a few batches of this and keep it refrigerated, although I have run into problems with refrigerating dough and making it later on. It doesn't rise the same way. It has to completely come to room temperature, and then I feel like that just takes too long. It's easier to make a fresh batch each day, but if you want to have it on hand, that is an option. So my favorite way to make this is with just the tiniest bit of yeast and just let it rise overnight. You can make a quick rise method, and I shared that method in a previous video where I showed you how to make the original no-knead bread recipe. This one is way better though. When it rises low and slow at night, it just creates the perfect amount of air pockets inside the bread. It's light, the flavor is really good, but if you are looking for a quick bread, you can do it with more yeast and you could follow that recipe on the website. I'll link it down below. It smells amazing. It's time for the taste test. And just hear how crispy and crunchy it is. Oh my goodness. Nothing better than homemade bread, especially when it's filled with feta and roasted garlic. That roasted garlic gets nice and sweet in the oven, so it's perfect in this recipe. I love the feta. It's creamy and it has a little tanginess to it. If you want to substitute the feta for something else, cheddar works really well too. And the oregano you can substitute with your favorite herb. Rosemary is nice in it. Let me know how you're making it in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. You can print this recipe out on the website, dimitrasdishes.com. If you want to learn how to make a delicious dip to serve this with, click over here and I'll see you right over there. Gracias.